All right, so on to the first of our skills is communication. So communication, I just picked up a couple of definitions from Google. They came from the dictionary.com and Webster. Does anybody actually have like a paper dictionary anymore? I did it one time, but now I just Google when I want to know the definitions of words. So I picked a couple of these out because, again, they had these similar information. So again, there's some consistency. Communication is imparting or the interchange of thoughts, opinions, and information through the modes of speech, writing, or signs. Or the Merriam-Webster one, words that incorporated sounds and behaviors and expressions. And so as we go into, also Rhonda still has the paper one. Oh my goodness, this is fabulous. And of the thesaurus, Shift F7 is my favorite in Word for the thesaurus. Business analysts, you and your stakeholders are the senders and receivers of information. Now that is a pretty basic concept, I think. You know, we're talking to our stakeholders, we're wanting to get information. I've taken numerous effective communication training programs. Some of them were live within my companies, some of them were online, and the majority of those say that it is the sender's responsibility to ensure that the communication happens correctly and effectively. However, as a business analyst, I think it's our role to make sure that the communication is clear, that our stakeholders understand the terminology that we're using. They understand the processes that we're going through. They understand why we're doing what we're doing. So as we proceed through this, I invite you not only to be a learner, to take this information, but also to consume this information as if you were going to teach it. So you can inform your business stakeholders as to what we're trying to do as we progress through the project. So take notes. I don't know if you're a pen and paper person, if you're a computer person, whatever, take notes. Again, ask questions. If you have questions, put them in the chat with the question marks in front of them. And there are 4 modes of communication. Now, I think the first one here is pretty obvious, written. We've got the paper thesaurus and the dictionary that Rhonda has, and that is, it's communicating the definitions that we're looking for. It's our requirement statements when we get around to writing them. It could be standard operating procedures. It could be a glossary of terms. It could be employee manuals, anything that's written down. And in this day and age, written doesn't necessarily mean paper. So we all have our electronic documents. We don't have a lot of paper anymore flying back and forth. But that is the written method of communication. Second, we have the verbal communication. So verbally, I am speaking to you and you are hearing me. We are live, so this could be considered a meeting and there's some verbal communication going on. Or for those of you who are, you know, actually meeting with humans in 3D person, that is awesome. Those meetings, recordings, videos, podcasts, all of that is in the verbal realm. Excuse me. Nonverbal. This one is a challenge because right now I have people, I see your people online, I see you, I know you're there, you're chatting with me, that's awesome. I cannot see your face. I don't know if you have a squishy face, like I don't understand what she just said. I don't know if you're smiling because you're having fun. I don't know. I can't see your face. And so when I am leading virtual meetings, much like this, I literally say, I cannot see your squishy face. If you have a question, you're going to have to drop it in the chat, raise your hand or something to let me know. Hey, Heather, glad you could join us. Nonverbal also is the tone of voice. So as you're listening to your stakeholders, if these are over the phone, if you asked me a question and I'm letting you know what I'm thinking, I'm probably not very engaged. Or I could be someone who's just, okay, I'm here, we're gonna go, I'm late for this meeting, I'm really, really sorry, okay, can we get started? That person might be a little bit in a rush, and so maybe we can kind of calm that one down. Nonverbals also, we have gestures. So if we are in person and you can see smiles, you can see fists raising in the air. If I ask you how are things going and you raise your hands, awesome. But those nonverbal are also workflow models. It's a picture, it describes, it has a lot of information. And diagrams, which we'll be learning tomorrow. And the fourth mode of communication or method of communication is physical. Screen mock-up, so you can see it on the screen. If you're development engineers, make up something and you can play around with it, even though it's not attached to the code behind it. 3D models, 3D printers of small pieces of equipment may be produced as a method for communicating the requirements or what the expected output is. And there's also wireframe diagrams. So with that first tool of communication, strongly suggest that you build a glossary for your projects. And I want to reference back to my time when I was working in the lab. And this was when I was actually in the lab. And this is one of the things that sparked my interest in process improvement. Because when I talked to one person, I was like, what do we do in the lab? And they're like, well, we run assays. And I talked to another person and they were like, well, we run analyses. And a third person would tell me, no, we actually run tests. And I was like, oh. And at the time, because I wasn't really into this clarification of the business analysis space, I was like, oh, okay. A couple of years later, fast forward as a BA, that exact same scenario showed up at a client. And I was like, so tell me what the definition of an assay is. And we were sitting in the room and I got the definition. And then somebody from across the room said, no, that's a test. And then, so the conversation was like, well, wait, what is it? And so through discussion, the team came to an agreement for our particular project. Now it's not going to be across the entire organization, but for our project, we were going to use the word test. And its definition was the analysis performed on a sample to produce a result. So while in the lab amongst all the chemists, they might say assay, they might say analysis, they might say tests. Whenever we were talking about our project and our documentation, we would use the word test. Now, a trick for you all and a tip that I encourage you to do is use this new word when you're speaking with your stakeholders and its definition, because they'll forget it's something new for them. So we're in our next set of meetings and we're talking about different things, and someone on the project team says, yeah, so I want to discuss how the assays get moved through the lab. And I'm like, assay? Or do you mean a test? Which we defined as the analysis performed on a sample to produce a result. And they're like, right, yes, we're going to use the word test. Okay, my apologies. I want to know how the test is going to get through to XYZ, where it ever ended. I don't remember that detail, but I do remember the repeating of the word with the new definitions. When we get to use the requirements, functional requirements, and non-functional requirements on day 3, on Wednesday, I do the same thing, because most people just think that a business analyst writes requirements. Actually, we write multiple types of requirements: business, user, functional, non-functional, transition. And so providing a definition is another way that you can teach your stakeholders what we're doing as a business analyst. It might sound boring. It might sound obnoxious to always put that in the vernacular of with the definition and with the term. It builds team building, because people will start catching each other. And they'll be like, no, wait, instead of analysis, remember, we're calling that a test. Oh yeah, that's right. And you're changing people's use of that terminology. All right, so just take a moment in your notes and just think of the different ways that you can share information with your stakeholders. Now, we talked about those 4 buckets of high-level methods. Is there something specific? Do you use email? Do you use chat or Teams, or what is it? I'm forgetting, not Snapchat, that's the thing on the phone. Maybe you use Snapchat, I don't know. I'm just going to pause here for a second, let you take some notes, and I'm going to grab a drink of water.